Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. And today's guest is John Lund. Hi, John.
Hello, Addie. How are you?
Doing well. So glad to have you on this podcast. We're going to have an amazing conversation today.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, John, you are an entrepreneur. You had a very successful company for 19 years that got recognized as the fastest growing company in Omaha. That's where you're from. And also you were in the Inc. 5000 magazine 3 times, I believe, right?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about that because you exited that company successfully. And then you started your consulting, your coaching business, B2B coach, right?
Correct.
And now you're involved in a whole new adventure of automating and systematizing business, taking the processes and using automation in order to make the business more efficient and more profitable.
I certainly am. It's been a fun ride.
Absolutely. So let's start with, before we start, let's give a big shout out to Joe Frost, who introduced us.
Yeah.
From my CMO. Your CMO, sorry.
Your CMO, yes.
That's right. So Joe Frost from yourcmo.com, and check out that website. It's all about fractional CMOs. And I just had an interview with Joe, which was fantastic. So I'm going to add the notes from that podcast in our podcast note as well.
Excellent. Yeah, good. Joe's a longtime friend of mine in the Entrepreneurs Organization here in Omaha, Nebraska. So it's been a great friendship for, pushing almost 20 years, getting a little older.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about your journey. So let's start with your company that you founded in 1995, OFFWIRE, and tell us about that journey.
So I was lucky, and I always felt privileged to always want to be able to own my own businesses. So out of college, I always had a couple I said that failed nicely before I started OFFWIRE. And what I meant by failed nicely, it's they didn't bankrupt me. Although I tell people that want to be entrepreneurs, a great time to be an entrepreneur is really early in your career before you have any debts or any like kids or houses or things like that. So OFFWIRE started mobile phone accessory distributor, early days back in the bag phone, brick phone world. And it was a great journey. We started off my first 4, 5, 6 years. I truly thought I was one of the brighter people. We were growing at 400% a year, 300% a year for 5 or 6 straight years. And then I got an article in one of my trade magazines that the industry was growing at about double what I was growing at. So kind of was like, oh, maybe I'm not doing as well as I should be and not going with that. And I was kind of using the fire drill school of management pretty early there, which was just whatever fire was in front of me, I tried to put out, and I was pretty proud that I could put them out pretty fast. But the business started growing too fast and got I needed to figure out a different way of managing my business. So that was the first 6 years of that OFFWIRE journey. Yeah, continue on the journey. I decided I was lucky enough to get involved in the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO. Learned some great strategy planning from all the way up from sitting in with Vern Harnish, one of the original gurus in this space, and a bunch of really good friends of mine, and learned that between strategy and then process, I had to understand what I was doing, why I was doing it. Everyone in my company needed to understand that, where the vision was. An exercise I like to run that I do coaching after the fact was if everyone closed their eyes and just thought of, hey, what's the best beach vacation you could imagine going to in 3 to 5 years? You got 2 weeks to just go to your best beach vacation. The good news is everyone on your team's got a vision of a beach vacation. The bad news is some people are going to Bali, some people are going to Greece, some people are going to Hawaii, some people are going to Florida, and some people are going to California. You're not going in the same direction. And what I found was we got to get everyone knowing that we're heading to the California beaches. We're not sure which one. We have to know that in 3 years, we're going to be between Vegas and Phoenix. We're traveling from Omaha. In a year, we're going to be in Denver. And next week or next quarter, we're going to be in Lincoln. So now everyone can understand the strategy. And that's what I was lucky enough to get involved with my business. I did the strategy to stop selling the $6 billion worth of market share that was out there to only focus on a $600 million piece of the market. And that was nice about that. And why process became so important. Before I had no processes because every client was a snowflake. Everyone was unique.
Right.
I needed to, my team was failing. They were like, what do I do with this client? What do I do with this client? Oh, follow the process. We were trying to over document, over understand in a bad way because it was trying to be, there's 45 processes for how to handle a customer service call depending on one of the 45 customer types. A little hard for the $14 an hour person to adjust to that.
Absolutely. And that is a problem definitely that I see with people that I talk to, entrepreneurs, about processes. My process is unique. There is no way to create a process because we have the 45 different types of clients, right? Yeah. So what do you say to that? Like, what was your solution?
I was lucky. I had a person come in and help coach me and get me more focused on, let's narrow down to your ones that matter. And then really let's build some processes around those people can follow and we could really take it to the next level so we could excel for our clients. Because here's the deal. When we were selling to 45 client types, we weren't excelling for any of them. Right. We were just not excelling for any of them. And once we figured that out and narrowed, we started growing at 3 times the pace that we were growing before.
Right.
In dollars per year, because we could strategize, go after it. We got really good at process documentation and process training, became critical in our business. And we became known as the vendor managed inventory company in our space. So we were like the best in the world at that business in our market. So our world was full service retailers, 5 to 500 stores, one of these 2 point of sale things, a very niche market, but that market was worth up to $600 million. So if I could grow by 1 or 2% a year, that was, $6 to $12 million in growth per year. If I could just capture 1% of that market by executing on our process that we documented for that specific group.
Absolutely. So John, I'm curious about that change of mindset from just, basically putting off fires to having a strategy. What was the main factor that got you from those 6 years of just like putting whatever fires, whatever comes at you and being proud of it, right? It gives you that rush of like adrenaline rush of like, yes, I made it one more time. Yes, I managed to actually overcome that obstacle to really look at, I need a strategy.
A lot of it was, I would say it was just emotional. First of all, being around some other people really helped. That's where the Entrepreneurs Organization came in that had broken through that mindset as well. But then it was working harder and harder and harder. I mean, it just became, I just got off the phone with a client this morning actually, and they said like, hey, we had a good year, but I don't want to relive it. And that was kind of my feeling, right? Like I had a good year. Good. We grew an extra $5 million or $3 million. That's a great year, except for it's harder. I mean, it's just getting hard. And then also the profit is not in dollars, but in the percentage was going the wrong way because we were getting inefficient because we weren't able to have focus and process and strategy that was all aligned and everyone rowing in the same direction to those beaches in California. And so it just, hey, we were making X percentage, then we're making X minus 1, then X minus 2, then X minus 3, then X minus, and I'm like, this is going the wrong way. So from starting to put in that 60, 70, 80 hours a week to be able to fight fires at that pace to watching the profit margin go down in percentages, I just was like, I've had it. And luckily I was around some people that said like, well, try strategy and try process improvement.
Absolutely.
And I listened. By the way, in my coaching world, I know we're talking about my company, but it's all these people, they start hitting that ceiling where they just feel like they're just working harder and spinning wheels. That's the moment, right? Like, and that can happen at $1 million and happen again at 5 million and happen again at 30 million, happen again at 100 million. But that's when you have to relook at strategy and probably process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So back to your journey. So you implemented the processes, you implemented strategy, you grew the company. Then what happened?
So we were on a great growth path. One of my proudest moments, I think, during that is I realized I had enough clients that were referring me at enough of a pace that I always say the story, I became beer delivery at conferences, which meant if you were a client and I saw a prospect, I'd get the two of you together and say, which beer do you like? And then I just say, you guys talk about me. And my client would sell to my prospect. And that was perfect. And I knew it was going to work and I wasn't nervous at all. So that was just a great journey. we had everything done. So then eventually a company came knocking. I had a number in mind. I went through a process of exit planning with a great friend of mine. So I knew 3 years in advance of selling what I wanted. And the first time they came, they're like, your business isn't worth that. I said, I know, but it will be. And they came back a year later. And we sold. And that due diligence process was really interesting because of the work we had done in strategy and process. I think it really helped me get an extra 0.5 to 1 EBITDA on the exit because of we had everything documented so well. It really made them feel secure and safe, which when, somebody's giving you a big chunk of cash, they want to see if it's smoke or mirrors, or like, is there something behind the sauce, right? Like something behind the screen that is valuable. So that was nice to have. It was really made it real easy for them.
Absolutely. So before we go on the rest of the journey after you sold successfully and what happens next, if you had to summarize to the business owners that are listening to us right now, why processes? What's the importance of having well-documented processes and procedures? What would you say from having gone through that, being the business owner and entrepreneur, selling the business successfully? How would you summarize? What are the main points?
I think a couple of things that are amazing to me. First of all, it allows for happy employees by having processes that they can follow and execute and win. I always want to know what winning looks like. And without it, you're relying on a unicorn employee, the one that can juggle so fast like I could, that they could do it. But the problem with unicorns is they're hard to find.
Right.
And they can't adjust quick enough. So by having processes, people at the end of the day or the end of the week, they could say, I won, I did well, I checked that box. That just made everyone feel great, right? And so just the idea, and then obviously meant the client felt great because the client had successful, they knew what to expect from us and we got it. It's like going to McDonald's, you know what the burger's going to taste like no matter where you are in the world because they're following that distinct process. So our clients knew what to expect from us. That was a big win for me. And I had no nervousness about it because we had our processes documented so well. So that was another benefit for me. Like I didn't have to worry about it, right? Like after my process were set up and started to be followed, obviously if something happened, some industry change or technology change, we had to adjust, but it just made it very calm for me. Employees knew how to win. We could reward them for winning. Clients knew that we were executing at a high level. Even backwards vendor, we had vendor processes of how to deal with all of our vendors. That just made life easy. And that was the best part of having them documented and followed. And by the way, when you had everyone involved, it wasn't hard to get people to follow it. It wasn't as hard as we thought. So that was a nice part of it.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And of course you got better price because, you were able, your business was, the valuation of the business was higher because of that.
Yeah. And I had no expectations of that. I didn't realize that. It was just a funny thing. Like the due diligence was crazy because there was a big company coming in. So they had 16 people come into my office. And so they'd go in and they're like, oh, what's your AR process to make sure you don't have bad debt? Here you go. How do you do your inventory ordering? Here you go. How do you do this? Here you go. And then they'd walk through and I could just give them to the front line person and go, and they could interview them. How do you run the process? Oh, this is what we do. And they were all calm about it. So again, the company coming to buy us and they were expecting us to keep running. They weren't relying on a unicorn.
Very true.
Right.
Very true.
They were able to give us more money because of that, which was a big time benefit, not only for me, but I had some other people on some bonus compensation. So they got to win too, because we got paid more.
That's great. Yeah. What a success story. So then you sold your company after 19 years. Yep. That was the first day after you sold it. You didn't have to go to work anymore.
Actually, I worked for 2 years for the large company, learned a lot. It's a different, you think you're in the same business, but it's different. So I worked for them for 2 years. So that was a different type of stress, learning a lot. It was great though to be able to do that. And I look back at it as a great chance that I had to learn. Lasted 2 years. Then after that, I took 6 months completely off. I literally said, I'm not going to do a thing. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to take vacation. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to learn how to walk my dog and play golf. And it really took me about 4 months or 3 months to decompress after. Now, when you had those 2 years, it was 21-year run of, running pretty hard with what it is. So that was great. So I took that off. After that, I wanted it to get back into helping small and mid-sized business. That's where I'm at. That's what I love. That's what I appreciate. I always tell people if it ends up to be like a 10 to 20 page contract with lawyers involved in red lines, I'm probably not your guy. That's not who I am. And I was doing strategy planning. I got really involved in strategy planning back a while before that in the Entrepreneurs Organization. I spent a lot of years volunteering for them, helping them set up chapters across the globe and doing chapter health. So at peak, I was traveling 12 weeks a year, volunteering, helping EO grow as an organization. Back then, there were a couple thousand members. Now they're 15,000. By the way, having processes in place helped me be able to be gone 12 weeks a year for EO plus another 4 to 6 weeks vacation because I knew the processes were running. So that was another benefit I didn't think about the last time. So I always help people with strategy planning a little bit. I'd always have 2 or 3 clients that I do strategy planning with kind of my whole career. And then I decided to get into that more, not full-time. My goal is not to work full-time, to go into help select 8 to 10 businesses at a time, grow and do what I did, scale businesses through strategy and sales. B2B is where my focus is. So I work well with B2B sales clients, or clients that sell the B2B world is where I sell the best and do my strategy the best is what I work on.
Absolutely. So if people want to, this is a great time. If people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Yeah, John at myb2bcoach.com is the easiest way, or just look me up on, you search John Lund on LinkedIn. It's pretty simple to find me on LinkedIn as well, and just send me a message that way is great.
Absolutely. And we'll have all your information in the show notes. So yes.
Thanks.
Okay, good. So that's the B2B coach, but that's not enough, right? So now there is a new adventure.
Yeah. So this is just how this came about is we had to be improved. We were a low margin business in the distribution and retail world. So we had to get more efficient, improve our processes, improve and automate stuff using technology in the past. And part of my thing with the Entrepreneurs Organization is we have a group called the Thirst for Learning Group. And I was just noticing that the Microsoft 365 platform, all these little extra icons started showing up. So we all understand Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. We all get that and kind of the Office suite. But all of a sudden, Planner showed up, and then Project showed up, and then Approval showed up, and then List showed up, and then SharePoint showed up, and then Yammer showed up. And then all these things that I'm paying for, somehow I'm paying Microsoft for these next 15 or 20 events. And I spent some time to try to bring somebody in to teach us about that and how do we use that to our advantage, like we should be using it. We're paying for it. And I ended up meeting this gentleman named Sridhar from eBiz Solutions out of Memphis. Fantastic gentleman, runs a nice business. And I said, how can you help us out? And he came and talked to our group through webinar because it was COVID, to about 20 business owners. And 5 of them immediately said, I need to talk more to that guy. I need to understand how I can use this to automate my processes. I need to get it better. And this low code, no code evolution is just changing the world, and it's going to continue to change the world. So anyways, we got him involved. I started becoming his strategy coach and his business to growth coach, and help him with his sales processes, I guess would be what I'd say about it, and his sales strategy of going out to marketplace with it, and became really good friends with him and became a partner in growth with him. I'm not an equity partner, I make that clear, but I'm a partner in growth with him to grow his business out as we scale the automation of processes through a low code, no code world, which is completely different than, I'm a little bit older. So the idea of back in the day, like custom software, everyone got really nervous about, right? Like, oh golly, I'm going to be hooked into some programmer. I don't know if it's going to work. It's going to cost 3 times whatever they quote me and take 3 times as long. That's a challenge. This is low code, no code. It's a totally different sport. You can do some cool automations yourself, or you can have somebody like Sridhar's team do cool automations for a few $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars, but not ever hundreds of thousands of dollars. That'd be a really strange world of this. And it's just amazing to watch with the power of, we use mainly the Microsoft suite. You can do it in other suites, but the power of low code, no code is incredible. So that's the fun thing we're looking at.
Yeah. So that's what you do now is with Sridhar, you go into businesses, you assess the business, right? And then you figure out what technology or what Microsoft tools you can use in order to automate processes. So I want to dive, right? That's a good summary of it. Good. So I wanted to dive a little bit more into it in terms of where should we automate? So we have a process. Let's say we're going to businesses that have their processes documented, right?
Yeah.
So, or there are existing processes. We need to document the processes, whatever the situation is. But what are some of the things that you look at to know that, yes, here we do need to automate because that will be more efficient? It's all the reasons you said about the why create processes, right? I mean, you can maybe relying on one person right now that is the unicorn or has all the knowledge, but what if that person leaves, and if you can automate some of it, right? It's more higher efficiency, profitability, ability to scale. I mean, we obviously have all the reasons why to automate, but how do you decide what to automate?
So what I love about Sridhar is his guide process, which is, gather the goals and then start to understand the business, right? That's the first parts of the guide process is and then implement it. But the idea is that we're going to go through, we're going to find out, first of all, what softwares you are running. We find a lot of redundancy. We look at their plumbing, we call it, right? Or that's what I call it, because it makes more sense to me than the data architecture. But we find out where they have leaks in their plumbing. But I tell you, the one that's just come up the most, which is just a different way, is what are the joy removing processes you deal with right now? What are the things that literally everyone in the company knows or in that department knows, I got to do this, right? And if we can bring a little joy back into the workforce, it's worth a lot more than often the time savings.
Absolutely. That's right. That's absolutely true. Yeah. So what I'm trying to basically figure out is, like, let's say we're talking to our listeners, like they want to do it themselves. Okay. So like how, if I'm a business owner and, a typical business owner will have probably, how many software do you think like an average business subscribe to? What is it, like 30, 50?
No, probably not quite that many, but anywhere from 15 to 25 we've seen. And it's amazing how many are redundant. So Dropbox, Box, SharePoint, Planner, Project, Trello, Monday, they're like redundant softwares, right? Like they do the same thing.
Right. So step number one is make a list of all your software and really understand what is the purpose. Like, why do I have that software, right? What function is it doing for me and how am I using it?
Yes. Yeah, we're actually going to have a free tool that we can send out a survey. It's like a software audit survey. And the funny questions is like, do you know anyone in the company who uses XYZ software? Do you use it? And then how frequently do you use it? And what we found is the initial run, when we ask the executives, they'll say, we only use 8. And we actually do the actual survey to all we have 21 softwares. They don't even know people have downloaded a best of breed version that they're paying $14.99 a month and $99 a month. And they're running it in the marketing department. They don't even know. Yeah. It's just interesting that way. So first, get an idea of their software, get an idea of how their data flows. Like how does it flow through? Is customer data in 3 locations? Maybe you have an issue, right? You're going to have leaky plumbing. There's no way you're keeping that data synced unless you're already done some automation and process. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I think has been a challenging thing for us to understand is people don't know what they don't know, and that's fine. And the way this low code has worked, there is 100 simple low code that are already done. And the best way I can explain it to people who don't understand it is most people now know if you go to create a new PowerPoint, you can grab a template and all the beautiful slides are already produced for you. And you just have to add the words. Well, that's what low code is. So you can go out there and like, I'm frustrated. I don't get an alert when this happens. And if you just go to the alert section of the Microsoft support.microsoft.com and look for automations, it'll like, you want an alert when your key client says this. That's possible. Like they didn't know it was possible. So some of our biggest challenge we have is first educating the clients, like go watch these or go look at this website. And you can like, here's 50 template automations that you can do yourself, or if it's going to take a little bit more, it's going to be, you want somebody with some experience at it that, it might be a 10-hour to 50-hour automation work on the backside. Get somebody that. But we actually literally have to show, we realized one of my clients, he's the one that taught us this, is you have to show me, he's a football coach, so he used football analogies. If I'm telling a kid how to catch and they've never seen football, they don't know what good looks like and they don't know what's possible. So you have to show us a highlight reel.
Right.
So you have to show a highlight reel of what's possible to automate because the world has changed.
That's
literally
right.
The world has changed on automation. There's just so many things possible. The stat from Microsoft is their Fortune 1000 clients. will do 500 million automation apps in 2 years.
Wow.
That's
So I guess the step number two, I mean, after you do the inventory, step number 2 will be to realize that automation is the way to go, that it's simple. It doesn't have to be very complicated. You might want to find an expert like yourself for sure, but let's say you do need to understand that automation is possible.
Very possible and quite easy. You can go out and there's a Microsoft list would be a great place to start. Go grab their template for like everyone has client or employee onboarding. Just go to that one and start playing around with a template of Microsoft list onboarding and take your process. Hopefully you've documented for onboarding and automate it.
Nice. Yeah.
It'll give you the dates, times, and let you know when people are overdue.
Good. So, I mean, I guess part of the story here is like, you assess your technology, make sure that realize that automation is possible. Then you have to definitely map your processes. Like that's your guide. Like when you do the guide, you basically have to map the processes. You have to make sure that the processes you have some level of documentation so you know what they are. Yes. And then you basically assess your processes for finding points that can be automated. So I know you have a great slide. You showed it to me before in terms of like the points that we automate and those things that bring joy, like removing the things that take away the things that do not bring you joy. So what are some of the things that you suggest that we look at in terms of knowing, yes, we should automate this or automate that? Like, how do I decide which parts to automate?
Yeah. So we look for, when people, if you just ask the questions on that step of the process, is it manual? Is it repetitive? Is it error prone? Is it customer? Is the next step going to hit the customer? Right. So when an error happens, there's no way to catch it between there and hits the customer. We want to look at those points to automate. And then we want to look at a lift versus results, right? So we say, hey, that's really important, but that's 100-hour automation. Is there some 10-hour automations that'll start the process and the wheel flowing first to give a good value? We want to go after those. So I'm trying to think of some other better examples for you, but there's just some easy way. People get it really quick. Manual, repetitive, error prone, customer centric, joy removing, seriously time consuming. Like we see a lot of people that enter data from one slide or one Excel spreadsheet into another template. Stop doing double data entry. There's almost always a way to automate that. Like almost always a way to automate that. Those are the things we look at first. We always want to get some quick wins out so people understand the power of automation. So those are those 10 to 20 hour total time to automate something and get that out first.
Absolutely. Good. So that's a good process on how to basically figure out how to automate. And then, of course, then there can be the training of your employees that now we're doing it this way. But that, again, if you have well-documented processes, you just integrate it into the documentation. Now all these steps 2 to 5 that we used to do before manually, now it's being taken care of by the automation.
Yes.
And you rearrange that. But of course, John, it sounds, I always like to in the podcast is to outline the process on how to do something, right? Because that, so like in this case, like how to automate, but it's really, get the experts to do it for you, right? Because you and your company and Sridhar are the experts at automating, and you have a very well laid out proven process, basically, like a very well laid out process on how to automate. You start with the needs assessment or the guide, where you actually evaluate the company. Then you have the quick wins, like how can we get quick wins, and then you can go all the way to to automate everything that you want to automate there. So I highly recommend that our listeners, contact you and find out more about how you and Sridhar can help them with automation. That's for sure.
I appreciate it. We love helping out. I love watching small and medium-sized businesses grow and expand, and if they can do it efficiently and effectively, it's really fun to watch. That's my passion, what I want to do.
Yes, for sure. And you do it very well. So, it's very obvious that, you're there to help businesses. So I definitely suggest people contact you. And this has been very informative. First of all, is your success story, and you're a living testimonial of why that you can start a business, grow a business, go through the growing pains, and get it to a point where if you apply the right tools, like the mission, the vision, the strategy, the processes, you can actually get to a point where You sell it at the price that you name, that you want, because you have all the systems in place, and then look for the next adventure. And when you help others as your next adventure, it's definitely very rewarding.
Yeah, it's been exceptionally rewarding. I love watching success happen, and I love watching people smile. My job is to create conversation and inspire growth. That's my personal why, and it's just been fantastic in the small business world to do it. And Shradar is just the next crank of the wheel is something that I can do that hits my passion, hits his passion, and hits my exact clients' passion for making their business easier to run and more efficient to run. So it's a win-win-win for me all the way around.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.